This good-looking girl is Greta. I was going to ask her to sit, but she doesn't know how to sit yet. She spent about 2 years in a shelter, and before that was like in a scrapyard in a tiny little enclosure. So she just really doesn't know anything. She also has separation anxiety because she finally, for the first time in her life, she's got somebody that actually is taking care of her. And so when he leaves, she's destroyed a couple things. Now she bent her way out of a kennel, and a lot of my clients, when they have a dog that bends their way out of a kennel, their first response is, how can I find a stronger kennel? Well, your first response should be, the dog is telling me that I can't handle being in here, so we need to help the dog practice being in the kennel. Now, in this case, she hasn't really been being too destructive since then, so we're going to kind of forego the kennel for now, and in this video, we're going to show you how you can teach your dog to stay. I like to teach dogs to stay when they have separation anxiety because essentially they have no practice being alone. And so then when we're with them 24/7 and then we actually leave and go to work, they're like, I don't know how to process because I have no experience doing this. So what we do instead is I want to help the dog learn to stay, and I'll talk about how we teach to stay in a second. But then once the dog eventually has achieved this, then I can put her in a stay in the bedroom and I can come out here. Or I can put her in a stay and go to the bathroom really quick. The idea is to put her in a stay, practicing being alone, but while it's the easier version of alone, because I'm not completely alone. Somebody's in the apartment, they're just not in direct eyesight. And then once we can get to the point where the dog can stay comfortably and practice being relaxed in the next room, then we start elongating that until we get to the point where the dog can be up to alone for whatever the duration is, where we know she's not going to destroy things. Separation anxiety is essentially a panic attack. The last thing you should ever do is get mad at a dog that has separation anxiety because they're just saying, I can't process this. And if we come home and your house has had some things destroyed, the dog, they have a very limited window to correct them. And so if your dog destroyed some stuff because it's so stressed out and you come home and you punish the dog because it chewed up your stuff, that's going to probably amplify the problem the next time. So just as if you had a friend who had a panic attack for something, you would never get upset with them because they broke a glass when they were so stressed out they dropped it. You would be commiserating with them. And that's the same mental outlook we need to have for dogs. Now, when we teach a dog to stay, I teach dogs to stay with the 3 Ds. First, for duration. I want the dog to stay in place right here for up to 5 minutes. Staying and not doing anything is actually remarkably difficult for a dog. We look at it as the easiest thing to do, and the dog's like, well, in her case, she won't do it. A lot of dogs are like, why are you giving me the treat? Do you want me to shake or roll over or fetch or sit or do something? She doesn't know how to do those things yet. So I talked off camera about ways to teach the dog to do those things, and the guardian's going to reinforce those behaviors and get her to do them more and more often. But the stay, all she has to do is just stay and not move away. Now, we also need to come up with a release word. I don't ever like using the word okay because I know dogs that was the release word that actually end up killing the dog because you're saying with the dog on a leash and somebody's having a conversation says okay and the dog just jumps and gets clipped by a car. So I like using release, break, freedom, and parole are the 4 words that I use. But you use vacation or anything. Any of those words resonate with you? Break, freedom, release.
Release?
Release is a pretty common one. So we'll use release. Now, once we've got our dog to stay for 5 minutes, only then are we going to start adding in distance. And then eventually we'll add in distractions. Now, we essentially have a little bit of distractions. We have the door open here because we're in downtown Santa Monica, and I want the dog to be exposed to the sights and sounds that she's going to hear when she's on walks because this is an easy version of her listening to the being exposed to those. Just the sound of it. And in a comfortable environment, when she's hears the car door slamming or the horns or whatever they are enough, then when she's on the street and hearing them, she's already prepared for them. Greta, puppy, puppy. There we go. All right, so when I'm doing the stay, I'm going to show you first just for duration. So I have a handful of treats here and 1 treat in this hand. Well, actually, all the treats in this hand. Greta, I'm going to give her a stop sign. I'm going to try to do her sideways so you can kind of see it a little bit better. And then I'm going to count my head. I'm going to start out, go with Greta with 1 second stays. Greta, stay. Stay. Wait for her to re-engage. And she likes doing this little kind of lap. If she does this, she might eventually put the table over against there. Greta, stay. Stay. So I'm just doing 1 second stays. Greta, stay. Now we'd like her not to move away, and it would be ideal if she could sit, but I just have had difficulty trying to rock her back into a sit. Let's see if we can try it one more time. Greta, sit. Right. I'm asking you to do things that you don't know. Greta, stay. Stay. This is like a half second stay, which is what I actually had to do for my puppy. Greta, stay, stay. So I got her before she actually walked away. Stay, stay. And like I said, it's hard for a dog to sit here and do nothing. Greta, stay, stay. Greta, stay. So for her, when she's walking away like this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to transition because she seems to want to go over to her dog bed. So I'm just going to kind of knee myself over here because this is kind of a safe place for her. If your dog likes to lay down when you're doing the stay, practice with them laying down. If they like doing a certain place to begin with, then start doing it there. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can get you into a sit, if I can rock you back into a sit on your dog bed. Sit. Sit. Right here, Greta. Sit. Sit. That's called a jackpot. So if a dog does something that's difficult, the first time they do it, you want to give them a lot of rewards. So they're like, what did I just do? How did I get all those treats? Greta, puppy, puppy. I keep on giving you the puppy calls if you had a good breeder. You probably did not. Let's see if we can get Achieve to sit again. Sit. Look at that. Who's smart? This is transitioning into a sit exercise. Now notice how I keep on going back to her nose. Anytime she disengages, I go back to her nose and try to get her head to go up, and then I go back if she loses interest. Try to get her head to go up because that's usually if the head goes up, you can get the butt to go down. And as soon as her butt hits the ground, I'm going to get that treat in her mouth as fast as I possibly can. Sit. All right, so stay. 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 That's 2 seconds. Remember, after you give the treat, she should hear the command word after the treat goes in her mouth. Greta, stay. Well, let's do a sit again. That's a cortisol you got in your blood. That little jumpy twitch you saw from her. Greta. You know, all this stuff in the hand, I have to have a stronger scent for you to do it. Sit. That was awesome. Now she did that on her own, but I want to make sure I give her the reward. Stay. 1, 2, 3. Stay. I'm going to try to go to 4. Stay. Stay. And it doesn't matter if she doesn't look at you. Eventually you're going to do this with her out of sight. Greta? Oh, let's do a sit again. See if we can get that sit. Let's do that sit again. Sit. Greta, you're doing awesome. Let's do another sit. Greta. Sit. Sit. All right. So now the important thing is we don't want to, I'm going to transition back into the stay. So when we're doing the stay, you want to get a 100% success rate. So you don't want the dog to do what she was doing as what we call an auto release. Okay, I'm going to walk away. So when you're doing that, eventually you want to do this in different places, but if she keeps on gravitating to come back to here, then practice this here, wherever she feels comfortable. So the idea is you just give her a stop sign. You just extend your hand halfway between her and you just give the command word of stay. And then you're going to pull your hand back to your chest, count to whatever your count is, and always count in your head, because otherwise it'll go by too fast or not fast enough. Actually, film that real quick. She didn't go outside, but she went in that direction, which is awesome, because she normally doesn't do that. Okay, so when we're doing a stay, I'm going to go a halfway between her, and when I punctuate, I say stay when I get to the halfway point, and then I pull it back to my chest, and I count to whatever I count to. Then I give her, for my other hand, the treat, and I say the word stay after the treat goes in her mouth. Now, like I said, you might have to go 1 second stays for a while. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Once eventually you get to the point where you can go to 2 second stays. There we go. So sit. That's passive training, but do that as much as you can. All right, let's see if I can do like 3. I'm going to do 2, 4, 6, and I'm going to release her with the last one by throwing a treat to the side so I can train her what the release word is. Now, when you do this, have the number of treats that you're going to do ahead of time, and maybe an extra or 2. Stay. Stay. That was 2 seconds. Stay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stay. Greta. stay, stay. Now I want to release her. Now, of course, after she lays down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a treat and I'm going to drop it over here when she's looking. And I'm going to say the word release when she licks it up. So if you're practicing, let's say you practice 3 times or 6 times or 12 times, however many times you want to practice, don't probably go more than like 12. And then at the very end, you throw the last treat to the side, and when she comes up and licks it up, we say the word release. So we want to understand that the only way that you can get leave the stay is hearing the release word, in this case, which is actually, ironically, the word release. Crash. Passive training. So the idea is you want to keep on doing this until you can get her to stay in one place for up to 5 minutes. Don't move to the next step until you get 5 minutes. Most people move this first to the next step right away, which is adding distance. So now, if you can't see my face for the rest of this, that's okay. Make sure you can see her, and I'm going to stand up and move a little bit. So once I can achieve 5 minutes, and one other thing, before we do this, at first you want to practice just here, because that's where we can get her to sit and to stay. Once you've taught her to sit consistently, then you want to practice it in different parts of your place, because dogs don't generalize well. They need to do it in multiple different locations in order to approximate that behavior. All right, so now once she can stay for duration, now we're ready to take the next step. So what I would do is if I'm standing and she's not paying attention, that's okay. I'm going to go stay, and I'm going to take 1 step backwards, and I'm going to count to 2. Then I come back, give her the treat, and say stay. And then I'd say stay and take 2 steps backwards, and I'm going to count to 4. Now this is my genesis point. Every dog is going to be unique based on how well they do. So you might take 2 steps back and count to 20. It could be whatever the count is, but that's where I start off to begin with. Now, at first, when you start backing away, it's natural for the dog to want to come to you. So if you go 1 step back and then she stays, then you go to 2 steps and then she starts coming to you, back up to 1 step and practice at 1 step. Same thing for duration. If you're going from like 15 to 20 and you go to 17, 18 and she gets up, then next time you practice, you go back to 17 or 16. Always back in about 2 or 3 seconds, just a couple intervals before. This is why we always want to count in our head so we know where we were at when the dog lost its stay. The whole point is to help her practice the stay without auto-releasing, which is walking away on her own. So once you can get to the point where you can be at 20 paces away, and the way that this apartment is laid out, I would recommend you do it kind of walking. Actually, you could, not the kitchen would really work. It would probably be best walking, putting her in a stay here and walking in your bedroom. So let's say that there's a wall here, and the dog is here, and I walk backwards, and I'm into the room now. I take 1 step out of sight and 1 step back, and then I walk back to her. So the first time I'm out of sight, that probably is going to cause her to come to you. Now, if you take your time and do 5 minutes first, and then you're doing it back and forth, and but before you start moving out of sight, you practice getting up to 20 paces away. You step out of sight and like literally step and step back and walk back and give that treat. And then do that a couple times, because when you go out of sight, that, like I said, it often prompts them to come find you. So do that a couple times, and after she can do that for, she had 3 or 4 or 5 successful ones, then step out of sight for 2 seconds. Then come back and give her the treat. And then once you practice 5 or up to 12, then make sure you throw that treat off to the side when you get done. So you really want to practice this one in short sprints throughout the day. A whole bunch of short practice sessions that last up to 5 minutes. But a couple in the morning, a couple in the afternoon, a couple in the evening. And eventually when you get to the point where you can have her, where you can be out of sight, you're going straight to normally I would not allow that. You're going straight to the treat pouch, but for you, that just shows good crafty and ingenuity. We like that. We'll give you a treat for that, for your investigation skills, yes. Let's see if we can get another sit out of you while we got you on camera. So I'm going to use the treat to lure her back a little bit. And again, see how I keep on coming back to her nose anytime she disengages. Sit. Now I did push very, very gently a little bit with the treat, and that rocked her back into a sit. But you see, as she's more comfortable with me, she's more relaxed. If a dog's not comfortable, it won't sit down because that puts them in a subordinate position. So if there's a new person and she won't sit, or a new experience, that's probably why, not that she's just being obstinate. So once we get to the point where it can be out of sight, we want to start elongating that. And once we get to the point where we can have her out of sight for like 5 to 10 minutes, that's when, and only at that point should we start trying to leave the apartment. Now, what a lot of people do is they leave, and I'm going to go a quick bite to eat, and then I'll be back. Sit. Passive training. You don't want to do that. At first, what I would do when you leave, leave and just go outside, like literally go out the door, let it latch, and turn around and come back in immediately. So unlock it so you don't have to fumble with your keys. And so again, just the same thing. We're out of sight but out of the apartment. But again, for a fraction of a second, they come back. And the dog should be in a stay when you do this. And then eventually stay and you leave the apartment for 2 seconds and 4 seconds. And it's helpful if you have a security camera so you can actually see if your dog auto-releases. If it does, again, back up that step and practice again. But for her, it might be the point where you might have to go 15, 20 minutes, the max of in the other room before you start going outside. If you go outside and she immediately comes to find you, so keep on elongating, having her practice being in the other room when you're in here watching TV or eating a snack or whatever it is. Try to get more and more situations where she practices being alone. But the most important thing about being alone is being calm when they're alone. A lot of dogs help the dog practice being alone and they're panicking, they're freaking out, they're bending the kennel or chewing stuff up. Well, that's the behavior they're going to continue offering. What we want is this sort of energy, nice and relaxed and confident in what she's doing, and practicing being alone for longer and longer periods of time. So when you go to the bathroom, put her in a stay, go to the bathroom. Put her in a stay, get a drink of water. Put her in a stay, go smoke a cigarette. We don't smoke cigarettes, but whatever it is, and we just want to make those progressively longer and longer. You might even start a little chart. So you write down exactly how long each time is, so you make it progressive. And again, anytime she fails, back up a step. Now, once you can get to the point where you can stay, have her stay for, maybe up to 15, 20 minutes outside of line of sight, that's when you can start incorporating a stay with distractions. Now, a great place to practice that would be in the hallway without any hustle and bustle out there, or right here on the deck. Now, the deck is going to be harder, so I would try to achieve it out in the hallway and start adding some distance. And you'll play around with the elements. In the hallway, maybe you start doing distance right away. You can have her practice while she's in the hallway and you back away into the apartment, or have her in the hallway and you walk down the hallway and eventually around a corner and stuff like that, where she practices being alone outside. But the whole point of this is to set her up for success by not pushing her too far too fast. Let me think. So that's basically, we want her, like I said, to gain that confidence. And if you go at her pace and go slow and use a lot of that positive reinforcer and always release with that release word, eventually you'll be able to just say release and she walks away. That's what you want. But you keep on just tossing that treat, but make sure you do that every single time when you get done practice session, not in between each repetition, but at the end. Throw that treat about 2 feet to the side so she has to get up and walk 1 or 2 paces away. Let her have the treat, and then at that point you're done. And if you can, try to play with her a little bit or rub her favorite spots so it's a positive experience. Now, if you get frustrated or the dog starts getting frustrated and she's not doing well, try to get a good one in if you can, but if you can't, just stop. We don't want her to have a negative association. Yeah, last time we tried to practice stay, you got really upset and I was frustrated, and so I don't want to do that again. That's why after each time, if we can, we want to play ball, roll the ball, or give her a little belly rub, or what are the things that she likes to do, so she has, not only does she have boosted self-esteem and confidence because she did it right, but also because something pleasant happened at the end of that she enjoyed. Well, Greta, you did very good, and this is a good sign of a dog that's been using its brain a lot. She's tired. We've been doing a lot of exercises. But this is Greta, and these are some tips and tricks you can use if you have a dog that has separation anxiety, teaching them to stay to help them practice being alone.